went up in the right direction. And so I felt, boy, I am lucky. I better be more careful. But in any case, in my true vigor, I did decide to go back on the milk box because I felt somebody else is going to come down and they're going to be asking me the directions too. So I'll better take and go back up again to see what they're driving. The little boys are always interested in vehicles, at least in those days. So here I'm back on my milk box again and thinking, oh boy, I wonder what's going to come up next. Well, the next thing I heard, this time I could see again a vehicle coming up, and this time it was a Volkswagen Kubelwagen. For any of those who know that, that's the Volkswagen Jeep of the German army. It has a flat front with a wheel on tire, spare tire on the front on an inclined front deck, and it is open and has four passengers capacity. It's a vehicle that the Germans came out with before the American Jeep came out, and the Americans learned that, well, if the Germans have a Jeep type vehicle, which they used in Africa, which was so light that four men could have, and it looked like a pipe, bent pipe on each end of the four corners of the vehicle, so that four men could physically take and hold their rounded handlebars on the front and the back and on both sides of the vehicle and lift it out of a jam. This was very smart. The tires were absolutely bald, very important for young men to know, and this was because they could go in sand very well for some other reason. The American Army came out with the Jeep later on, and I of course became in love with the Jeep, and I decided, boy, one day I'm going to have my own Jeep. Well, in any case, what happened then was the fact that this vehicle came down on the Gamle Drammensveien, and I noticed that it had two small plexiglass front windows like windshield. The one on the right side had been flipped down, and the reason for that was that a machine gun was mounted on the right side, and the guy sitting on the right side was a very impressive, large German master sergeant, and the guy on the left, who was the driver, was a thin, skinny little fellow, and the fellow in the back seat behind this big master sergeant wore a different cap, and I could determine that when the vehicle came close to me, he was a captain in the German army. The one in the right front seat, he was a master sergeant, which is called Hauptfeldwebel. Hauptfeldwebel. Very impressive. The German Hauptfeldwebel is like a master sergeant in the American army. If you've ever seen any one of these DVDs where these training sergeants are yelling at everybody, this was the type of the German sergeant sitting in the front. Very impressive fellow. And he was fondling this machine gun. And again, I've decided that, well, stand with your weapons straight or your arms straight and don't do any movement of them, because then you're not irritating him. Well, in any case, the captain asked me very politely, and I stress this, he asked me very politely again in a good mixture of German and Norwegian, where is the way to Kolsås? And so I decided, here, I've sent the other guys the wrong direction, I'd send these guys. And so I told them the same thing, straight ahead, up the road there. Well, the captain decided, he said something to the master sergeant, again in Bavarian German, which was not in my earlobes to comprehend. I just didn't get what exactly it was. But the master sergeant in the front stood up from his seat, reached over, grabbed Richard, or Uba, as I was called at the time, lifted me physically into the seat where the captain had been sitting, and the captain had moved over to the left behind the driver, and now I was caught in the Jeep, and the captain said to me, well, you'll just have to show me the road. And now, of course, here I am, sitting in the Jeep, a prisoner of the guys that I had fooled, and I thought to myself, good grief, what do you do now? And they driving off in the wrong direction. Well, I did like any of these young boys today would do. They would say, oh, my mother doesn't allow me to go with strangers. And I began to cry. Well, at first it was crocodile tears, the best I could manage, but they soon became very real, and I was very frightened, because here I am stuck behind these, in their car. How do I get out of the car? What can I say, or what can I do, and how can I escape this predicament? Because they're going to be seeing in a few minutes that I had led them in the wrong direction. Well, it didn't last very long before, as we're driving up this hill, the captain said, oh, don't cry. He said, here, have some of this. And he took a piece, what looked to me like one of these nut cakes, and he took out his big bayonet, and I thought, holy, he's going to spear me with it. But before he did that, he took this cake out, and what I thought was a cake, and he cut off a big slice, looked like a slice of bread, and he put it in his canteen cup that had water in it, and he started stirring it with his bayonet. Well, it gave off the smell of a stew, a regular beef stew. It smelled very good, as a matter of fact. And he asked me with a slice of the stuff on the end of it, would you have a taste? And I, of course, well, this time concentrating on crying as effectively as I could, and wouldn't have any of the trying this thing. My mother didn't allow me to take food from strangers. And so we went on further. By this time I could notice that the master sergeant was getting more and more irritated. He felt that and made some comment to the captain about this crybaby. We should dump this crybaby or get him out of the car. Well, by this time we had come on top of this little hill, and I was now more frightened than ever, because in another minute we would be seeing the water of the Oslo fjord, and we would know, obviously, that we're in the wrong direction. And by this time, to our luck, here comes two ladies, the grand aunt and the grandmother of a friend of mine. They were coming out on their morning walk with parasols. They were both in their 90s, and they had canes and sun parasols. And they came just at the edge of their estate, and were probably going to turn around and go back when they saw us coming. And so the sergeant asked the captain, let's ask them for the road. And the captain agreed. And so the captain again takes his hat off very nicely, politely, and asks the two ladies, what is the way to Kolsås? And by this time the ladies look at the car, and they see me in the car, and the next thing they say is, oh, what did he tell you? He's lying. Go back down the hill and turn to the left, which was up the right road, of course. And by this time, the sergeant said to the captain, he said, oh, they are trying to send us in the wrong direction. We have to let the boy out of the car, so we get rid of him and we'll continue his road. And so they put me out of the car, and I went around the back of the car, and here these two ladies are whipping their canes at me for telling a lie, and they are driving off in the direction that I had sent them in. Well, I felt, here I am. The two collaborators have told the Germans the right road, and the Germans obviously have forgotten or have taken my word. Boy, I've learned that I can fool these guys. And so I decided, boy, I'm going to go home now and tell my mother. And so what I've been in my first engagement with the enemy in Norway during World War II, and got away with it to my luck.